the digital segment of the Ethical Enterprise Conference 2022, The Big Shift, where we interview a series of inspiring social entrepreneur leaders and founders who are making a huge impact and are embracing the big shift. Today, I would like to welcome Josh Ross, the co-founder and CEO of Humanitix, the world's first charity disrupting the heavily resented ticketing industry. Humanitix has had great success across Australia and New Zealand, received multiple year funding from the Atlassian Foundation and won the Google Impact Challenge in 2018. Prior to co-funding Humanitix, Josh started his career as one of Sydney's leading hedge funds, where he spent 7 years in the investment team. I've seen many people from the investment world shifting their career to other things. So Josh, I met you in 2017 when you pitched the concept of Humanitix at the Moral Fairground Early Ethical Entrepreneur Pitch Competition. That was a while ago. You didn't win at that time. But in 2021, you won the Ethical Enterprise Award. So I would say Humanitix has gone out to shift the way the event ticketing system works. And I'm really, really inspired by the journey, in particular because I saw you when you first started out to where you're at now. So instead of going straight into business, I want you to tell me a little bit about what is going on in your personal life.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me. So I've just moved to Colorado. It's an open-ended trip. Sydney's home, parents and family, etc. are there. So one day I'll head back, but we're trying to grow Humanitix in America. So I also got married literally a month ago in Sydney. And then me and my wife packed up our bags and came over here, and we just spent a week hiking in Moab in Utah, which if you've never been there, it looks like Mars. It's a very cool place, but yeah, we're quite outdoorsy people. So our idea of a honeymoon was to not shower for a week and hike around the desert, which was fun. Yeah, don't have kids yet, but that's probably on the horizon in the next few years. I don't know how personal you want me to get, but yeah, married the love of my life. She's a pediatrician, so she'll be good with kids because I'm not so good with kids, so I don't know. But yeah, that's on the cards. And yeah, other than that, I'm lucky I get to work with some of my best friends, and I love what I do.
That is great. Look, congratulations, by the way. And I love how you went hiking. I'm outdoorish, but I always envisioned, the honeymoon with a 5-star resort, and here I am at 10. That is gold. Fantastic. So, Josh, I just want to ask you. You see a lot of events on your website, on Humanitix. What type of events do you like attending?
Yeah. So it's changed over the years. I love music festivals. So my favorite music festival in Australia is probably Woodford Folk Festival. And it is a really wholesome, great display of Australian culture, heavy Indigenous influence. You can kind of sink into it over 5 days, lots of international music as well, lots of arts and craft, high caliber people, interesting people go to it. Like the Chasers go, or have gone in previous years, and like they do a skit at it, and there's lots of different things going on. It's not just music. And so but I also love there's conferences can be amazing as well, but that's probably more from a work perspective, from a pure personal passion perspective. I love music, I love dance, the vibrancy of humanity.
That's great. And I suppose, yes, as life changes, your taste changes as well. So, but great advertisement that. Well, we'll check it out. So tell us what type of leader you are, to be in your position over the years, to take a long time to establish the business and then made it a success. What style of leader?
Yeah, so it's I haven't had formal leadership training. So me and my best mate Adam started Humanitix together, and we started off as a bunch of volunteers. Me and Adam had good jobs before we started Humanitix, but we moved back to our parents' place because we had to volunteer for a couple of years. So I think when we met, I wasn't drawing a salary. It was a passion project, although a full-time passion project. And so when you start an organization like that, the leadership's the first people that join you are also volunteers, and that totally changes the leadership dynamic, because when you employ someone and you're paying their salary, you demand things of them in a different way than if someone's volunteering and helping you build a vision, and you owe them, they owe you nothing. In fact, you owe them for being there helping you. And especially as well, we started at our parents' house. So we got to about our first 10 staff. At that stage, we were getting paid, but around the dining room table. And again, the mother and father at the home, the grandfather lived there. Adam's grandfather I think he was 90-ish when we were all working at the house. So there's the family dog. It just creates a totally different leadership style and vibe to a traditional business. And so we're very relaxed. I like to think of myself as a boss 3 days a year. The rest of the time, I'm a colleague. And good people don't need to be managed that tightly. I think at the scale we're at now, which is still under 40 people, that can maintain. But probably, hopefully, as we scale and have more impact and have more staff, I'm probably not the right leader to manage hundreds of people. I'd still love to be involved with Humanitix. I don't have an exit plan. I don't want to leave. But I don't think I'll be the type of leader that's like, managing people at that scale, because at that point, I think I'll lose the enjoyment of it. I like to get to really know the people I work with.
Yeah, that's interesting you make that point, because I think there's a big difference between managing and leading. So you could potentially, it sounds like you're the leader, and then you'll need someone to manage the day-to-day activities going forward. And I think that's why you got so far, if you look at it that way. So tell us what inspired you. You had this great job at a hedge fund. Obviously, the career path would have been very different, and you gave all that up to start. You took a risk. Obviously, you volunteered for a few years, works on kitchen tables and so on. So, what made you go that way?
Yeah. So you said a really good job in a hedge fund. I challenge that because it depends where your values are at and what you want in life. And so when I was 20 years old, just before I got the job in the hedge fund, I said to my best friends, if I'm still there in 5 years, get me the hell out. This is a means to an end. I want to save some money so I've got the freedom to do what I want with my life. This is a trade. It's not an investment. That's not to say that I wouldn't change my mind, but it wasn't what I wanted to do with my time long term. So yeah, the reason why I'm doing Humanitix is multifaceted, but if I was to pin it down to a few moments, one key one was when I read Banker to the Poor, which is a book by Professor Muhammad Yunus, who founded Grameen Bank. And if anyone hasn't read his book, they should. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for reimagining banking for the poor. And he came up with the concept of microfinance. It's brought millions of people out of poverty. I remember reading that as an economics student and thinking, oh, wow, I want to do something like that with my life. But obviously $1 loans don't go very far in Sydney. So I went to the drawing board with my best friend Adam, and he had his own motivations. And it took us about 7 years to come up with a good idea. But the strategy in the interim was to get good experience, build a network, try and build a little nest egg. Neither of us were millionaires or anything like that. That's why we moved back to our parents' place. But we also had a good start and a fortunate life in Sydney. So I don't feel sorry for ourselves at all. We were very lucky to have the freedom to do this. But I always wanted to go in this direction. I just didn't know much about the social enterprise landscape until my early 20s. Prior to that, I thought I'd just end up in a traditional NGO. That kind of idealistic hippie, run off to India, do something cool. Then you realize you get there and you have no skills and that they've actually got more than enough labor. So you're just a burden. So luckily I didn't go down that path, but I was like, if you'd asked me at 17, that was the dream.
That is great. But you obviously saw a gap, right? You saw a gap in the market. When was that moment you go, hey, there's an opportunity here?
Yeah, so that's where the hedge fund and Adam's background in management consulting, but in technology, was really useful, because all I was doing at the hedge fund all day was looking at industries and companies and evaluating them. So it's kind of a perfect training for trying to find a business idea. And Adam had the tech background. And so we were for a couple of years there looking for industries we thought were ripe for disruption with a social enterprise model. And the formula we thought that could work really well there is if you can find a heavily resented industry where the incumbents have no favor with the public because, let's be honest, ticketing platforms are annoying. They charge excessive booking fees and bad customer service, and they're not friends to the artists and entertainers either, generally speaking. So we're like, cool, it ticks those boxes. It also ticks the financial boxes. And what I mean by that is in most social enterprises, not all, there's exceptions, it costs more to do the right thing. So if you think of eggs, by example, there's no way around it. Free range eggs cost more than caged eggs, which means if you can't afford to put food on the plate at home, or you can't afford to educate your kids, why on earth would you buy free range eggs? You're going to go buy caged eggs. And I would do that in that situation because my kids would matter more to me than being ethical on eggs. And so we thought, can we find social enterprise models that do the right thing, are super ethical, but don't have an ethical premium? Because then you'll win the ethical people, the rich people, and everyone else who just needs the best eggs at the best price. And if you can build in social impact and not charge an ethical premium, then you can scale. Because we noticed in the social enterprise sector, it's still a cottage industry, as in there's no Nikes or Apples of social enterprise yet. We need those, which is why Patagonia's announcement last week was so damn amazing. But so in cracking that formula, we came across ticketing and we thought, cool, ripe for disruption. We can come in at a price point where event organizers save money using us and do the right thing. And that way we'll win the ethical event organizers, the wealthy event organizers, and everyone else who just wants the best value proposition, because events management is tough and most event organizers lose money on their events. It's a really tough industry. They can't afford to be paying premiums. And so so that was kind of, again, back to our commercial training. Like we looked for an industry with that, and then we love festivals, we love music, we hate booking fees. It was sitting in front of us the whole time. Some of our friends are musicians, it's just, it's like, it's in your face, especially as a university student.
Exactly. And look, we use Humanitix all the time. Been doing it since I met you, actually, since 2017 when you told us about it. I know you did a lot of work in getting the app working properly. You did a lot of research and it is, cost effective. It works well. How does it work in terms of where, the social enterprise element of it, people book, and where does that money or portion of that money goes? How's that work?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for supporting us. And you actually were one of the first people that used us. And that sounds like you run the Ethical Enterprise Conference. So like, of course, you're going to be one of our early adopters. But I won't name names, but a lot of people in the social enterprise ecosystem took 3 or 4 years to switch from Eventbrite to us. So credit to you for practicing what you preach. So to answer your question, how do we bake social impact into the model? So there's a couple of ways. The way that we're most well known for is that our booking fee profits fund education programs for disadvantaged kids. So this doesn't cost our clients anything extra, but we have no shareholders, and the profit we make from the booking fee. In Australia, we focus on Indigenous education initiatives. Globally, we focus on literacy and life skill programs for young girls. And we partner with the Atlassian Foundation, which is one of the biggest givers to education in Australia now. And we piggyback off their research and evaluation and monitoring, because they've got much more resource than us for that, to pick the right projects and make sure that they're effective. When our clients themselves are a charity, it's a bit different. They just get our platform at a much reduced rate. And so we save them money, and our fees are now 60% lower than Eventbrite's, which is pretty cool. And so literally now thousands of charities use us, because if they're running fundraising events, it's like mad not to. So that's the one big form of impact, and it's really exciting. Like, obviously COVID smashed us. To date, we've given $1.5 million to our projects. That was as of June. But this financial year, assuming we don't go into another lockdown, we will give between $2 to $3 million to our projects this financial year in Australia, which is just mind blowing for us. Like, we're finally at scale in Australia, and we can still quadruple in Australia. And New Zealand's the same, but about 10% the size because of the population. And so that's a big form of our impact. But our mission is actually much broader than that. We think technology is the biggest driver of change in our world. We want to solve social problems with the power of technology. So I think it's really powerful to have technology charities at scale, of which we're trying to build one. So another form of impact is we discovered about 4 years ago that people with disabilities have a really hard time going to events. They can't get the information they need. If they're blind, they can't use the website because it's not compatible with a screen reader on their phone. And so we teamed up with Vision Australia, the Australian Network on Disability, and a few other disability groups. And we rebuilt Humanitix, and it's now the most accessible registration platform in the world. So much so that I actually had an event organizer in Melbourne who's legally blind run her event on our platform completely independently. And she even checked in our own guests using our app. And she wrote a really nice anecdotal message to us. It was an anecdote, but she wrote a message to us, to our support channel, saying, thank you to whoever built the app, because for the first time I can independently run my events. And so that's an example where disability groups have been lobbying the ticketing platforms for years to play ball, but there's no commercial incentive to do it. But because we don't have shareholders breathing down our necks, we saw, ooh, awesome, there's a problem to solve here, and we jumped in. So as we scale, we want to be much more than just booking fees for impact. We want to actually solve social problems with the power of technology, and that's going to be a lifetime pursuit. So we're going to do a lot more than ticketing in the long term, hopefully.
Oh my goodness, I really love what you're doing. And you're right. And, you know, you mentioned that a larger ticketing company, I'm not interested in a lot of this space. But the reality is all these spaces are big, you know, people with disability want to have access to events, want to have access to places to go. And often, you know, even event organisers sometimes struggles with that. So it's great that space you go in and that you're identifying these pockets of I suppose, of areas where you can make such an impact. You know, it might seem a small impact, but it's actually a massive impact to that particular community. So well done. So anyway, in 2021, last year, you won the Ethical Enterprise Award.
Thank you.
I think we were very, very happy. I know you couldn't make it because you were in the US, but what does it mean to win an award? You know, we're not the biggest and award givers in the world, but we know that we really try and engage and promote ethical enterprises around Australia that have such an impact, and we've always followed you. So what does it mean for you?
Yeah, so the ecosystem is still developing. So everything like this helps, because when you're building something, PR and marketing is like how people find out about you. And so when I came to your event in 2017 and pitched, I think my friend Kat Dunn was there as well. I'd met her through the scene, and she ran Grameen Australia. And like, so, you know, when you, like, even though we didn't win an award, I got out of that event a bit of PR, people saw our brand. You didn't charge us to come and present at your conference. It was like you were genuinely doing it to support the ecosystem. And then, yeah, a few years later to come back and win the award and get the prize money that we can put into our growth aspirations globally, because we don't have investors, like that all helps tremendously. But I think the biggest thing is just the awareness, the endorsement, the street cred that gives you, especially in the early days. Like in 2017, you know, we'd sold a handful of tickets, and we were working from our parents' place, and you get to present at a conference when you're a nobody with nothing. And so, and with an idea that's starting to get some traction, but like, you know, this is not a mature industry where there's, so I think it's really valuable, because it also, like, you have a lot of dark days as an entrepreneur when you're starting out. And when you get to go and present and be recognized, even if you don't win the award, it's still like an awesome break and morale booster from the day-to-day of trying to sell tickets in our example and running into problems. And, you know, so yeah, there's a bunch of factors there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you know, we love a good idea. We just love a good idea. And you can see when there's a good idea, because I think there's the passion that you get from the individuals or the group that has that idea, that it's not seen anywhere else. You know, when you're serious about something, when you're so passionate, sort of that's your life. It becomes your life. And saying that, what would you say to aspiring social entrepreneurs? You know, the journey is not easy to shift the system, because what you're doing is shifting the system, you know, and what would you say to someone that wants to start a journey in this space? What is the level of commitment? Or, you know, what are the things you've given up, or what are the things you're still giving up or not, you know, but how does it look for you, and what's the journey been?
Yeah, so there's a couple of pieces of advice I'd give. One is, depending on the like challenge of what you're taking on, like obviously some social enterprise models are harder than others. Some are going to be very localized and difficult in their own unique ways, but you're not going to have to deal with scale problems, which is a totally different beast. So if like but if what you're doing is going to be incredibly complex, then my strongest advice is find a co-founder. So I would have failed a million times over without Adam. And in your first 2 years, no matter how good your idea is, you're going to almost fail a bunch of times. And to have someone else to share that emotional roller coaster with, but also to, you work on something for a week, you think you're going to win something really big that's going to make the world, and then it falls over, and you turn around and your co-founder has been working on something else for a week and it's worked. And so you get through that week and it's not so bad. But like when I have so much respect for entrepreneurs that do it on their own and make it, because it's such a harder journey. And I know a lot of venture capital firms highly rate it if there's a co-founder, because they know the chance of success is much higher. So that's my my biggest point. I think, I think a lot of social entrepreneurs make the mistake of trying to build a business plan without testing it. And so like if you want to do a social enterprise cafe, for example, but you've never worked in a cafe, stop what you're doing, go get a job waiting tables in a cafe, become a manager within 3 months, because you're going to be working your ass off and like way more motivated than the average person. And then at the end of that 3 months, decide if you want to do a social enterprise cafe. And if you do still want to do a social enterprise cafe, you'll make way less mistakes having had some experience. Yet if you've been a lawyer for 10 years and you decide, I want to get into social enterprise, I want to start a social enterprise cafe. I'm making this up. I don't actually know anyone who's done this, but I know similar versions of it. And you just go and spend 50 grand on your social enterprise cafe, and whoop-de-doo, you knew nothing about running a cafe. And you can get a cheap education by just going and working in what you think you're going to disrupt. And so, when I went into work in a hedge fund, I just knocked on hedge fund doors and said, I'll volunteer. And they were like, what? No one volunteers in a hedge fund. I'm like, I want to get my foot in the door to work out if this is what I want to do with my time. And then within a month, I'm going to know. I don't want to study for 5 years to find out the actual job's nothing like the reality. But it's the same with starting a business. If you want to do a social enterprise and you don't have experience in that vertical, even if you don't get paid, go and have some experience in it before you start trying to do it academically. And so that's the other biggest piece of advice I've got, is test it cheaply, even if that means working for someone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's nothing like working in the industry to find out later, oh, that's not for me. And you invested all that money. But yes, and I also think to add to that, it does take that leadership style that you said, that amount of belief that you're going to achieve that. If there's ever any doubt, I mean, doubts comes in all the time, but at the top layer, there's always that belief that there is a space for that, and you can make a difference. So this year's conference for us is the Big Shift. And I want to ask you, what big shift have you noticed, whether it's in consumers, in businesses, in society in general, whether it's positive or negative? What have you noticed, in particular after COVID? Has there been a shift in the way people's attitude, perhaps, or the way people interact with each other? What have you seen?
Yeah, good question. We've seen a shift in the workforce. So like the expectations obviously around working from home and flexibility have changed. And I think that's swinging back, but I don't think it'll swing back fully. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know quite what that means for the world, but we're rolling with it. Luckily, we're a tech platform, so it's a bit easier. I think from a social impact perspective, look, I'd love to think what Patagonia announced the other weekend. To anyone listening who isn't across it, the founders of Patagonia put the whole company's valuation, $3 billion worth, into a non-profit for the environment. They make $100 million in profits a year now, which is all saving the environment. It's like the coolest thing ever. And so, I think ethical business is a growing trend, which obviously you've been onto for a while. And so I think that is accelerating. The who gives a crap, the thank yous, like the Humanitixes. Hopefully there'll be many, many more in the next decade. I think there's a stronger trend to environmentalism as a cause area. That seems to be only increasing in terms of relevance. And it's interesting because cause areas have their phases. Like I think, and we see it a bit in our platform, where like through COVID, obviously mental health spiked as a cause area, but different cause areas matter to generations. And so that's interesting, but I think the environment continues to grow as a cause error. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the trends, but they do then shape the future. Trends becomes habits in sometimes, or become a part of our lives, and therefore they shape how the future would look like. And it's interesting. Well-being is an important. It's something that's now embedded in the workforce. Making sure the employees have a sense of well-being, because things change for them. So that's not going to change. Which is really interesting. I sort of didn't ask you about the move to the US. What are you thinking of achieving there? How are you going to achieve what you want to achieve there? It's a new market for you. How did you go about it? For someone that's wanting to understand, how do you go into a new market?
Yeah, so we took the view that we will only go and try and expand into the US once Australia is self-funding, profitable and stable, and doesn't really need us to manage it on a day-to-day. Because the US is so complex, and everyone tells you that before you get here, but it is just something you have to experience. It is 50 different countries in one country. Each state has different laws. If you're an online business, you have to pay sales tax to 50 different states. And it gets worse than that, because every county in every state has a different tax rate. So there's about 12,000 different permutations of sales tax we have to pay in this country as the platform. And so there's just a lot more administrative costs and legal costs and compliance costs. And so you don't want to be dealing with that when you're still trying to hustle into survival in Australia. Now, some businesses take the view of, we're not even going to bother with Australia. Once we got an idea prototype, we're just taking it to America. But we weren't like that. That's a different conversation. If you just want to start in America, really, that's different. But I think anyone who comes in here has to appreciate it's a very all-encompassing attempt that you're going at, and most Australian businesses fail. And so we've been lucky through our philanthropic partners to be able to get quite good advice from other entrepreneurs who have come here and succeeded and failed, and lessons learned. Culture comes from the top. So we just got the advice that if you want your American team culture to be similar to your Australian and New Zealand team cultures, you need to drop in your leaders from those geographies. And that's not to say that your leaders in America will be Australian in 5 years' time or Kiwi, but that initially you need to do that because culture comes from the top. And so James Humphison, who was our first employee in Australia, is the general manager here in America. I'm here, and we're building the team around us. And so far, so good. We've got great people. They're the same type of people we hire in Australia and New Zealand, good cultural fits, good values. We always take the view of attitude over skill set or experience. And so that's what we hire for. And yeah, it's so far, so good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's brutal on the compliance admin side. It's ruining my life right now, but we just got to get through that. The sales side of Humanitix in America is ahead of budget, and event organizers are switching in droves. And we just had a write-up in Forbes a few weeks ago, which got us a lot more momentum. And so it's way too early to call, but it's looking good. Our funders are happy. Touch wood, another pandemic doesn't hit us. So, we think it's going to work. And if it works here, we'll be giving $30 million a year to our projects out of America in 5 to 10 years' time. So it's a massive prize if you can make it work in this market. It's 10 to 15 times bigger than Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, half the booking fees of the world are in America. So we got to get it right here.
This is really, really incredible, and I can see how it's taken a while to get the model right, to get the organization right. And like you said, making money so that you can expand. It's really great advice. Don't jump into something without knowing always whether it's a startup or whether it's expansion. Now, we're sort of getting close to the end of the interview. So just wanted to ask just a very quick question. If you had to collaborate with an organization, of all the organizations that perhaps use your platform, who would it be? Or if you what social enterprise, if you don't want to answer the question, what is your favorite social enterprise of all time, apart from Humanitix?
So to clarify that, I'll answer both. But to clarify the first, you're saying of the events out there, who would be the dream event that we'd partner with? It would have to be Burning Man. It's pretty cool. Look, last year we ticketed Mardi Gras in Sydney, which was like, that was awesome. The team wanted to put together a float. We weren't organized enough, but that was like a cool win. We also ticketed Sydney's New Year's Eve party, so like all the fireworks precinct for the government. Those were some pretty big wins for us. But like in America, I'm focused on America right now. Adam's in Australia. If we could we ticketed a bunch of the burns in Australia. If we could ticket Burning Man in America, that'd be sick. Or Super Bowl, but that's never going to happen. So we'll see.
Super Bowl, yeah. That's great. That's great. Good thing to aim for.
Sorry, your other question was, who was my favorite social enterprise other than Humanitix, obviously. I'm going to give you 3 answers, which is probably breaking the rule, but whatever. Good Start Early Learning in Australia, I think, is probably the best case study. Like, people often don't appreciate they're a world-class social enterprise. For those who don't know, Good Start Early Learning is the biggest childcare operator in Australia. Amazing case study there, where it was a private for-profit business, or a publicly listed for-profit business, went bankrupt during the GFC. Massive government issue because about 15% of Australian kids were in their centres and had nowhere to go the next week. So a consortium of non-profits led by Michael Trail, who is, the grandfather of social enterprise in Australia and an absolute champion of a human being, pulled a rabbit out of a hat, brought it out as a non-for-profit, and now run an amazing operation, educating a whole bunch of Australian children with a whole bunch of an amazing impact measurement around it. Thank you and who gives a crap are like young peers of ours who we look up to and respect. Patagonia is my new favorite of the week because it's just the biggest social enterprise of scale that I've come across, doing something so cool, and it's also a cool brand, and I love the outdoors. And then Grameen Bank will always hold a place in my heart because that kind of inspired me on this journey.
Yeah, there's quite a few inspirational ones to look forward to. So last and final question, maybe 2 or 3 tips for social entrepreneur. I know you went into it before, but just very quickly, 2-3 tips, what to do if you want to start up a social enterprise.
So to summarize, get some experience in what you're trying to do before you roll the dice on it and try and build a product or something. 2, try and get a co-founder. The 3rd, with your co-founder or management team, have a culture where you raise things early, and be very disciplined about that. If you don't raise issues early, then they fester and blow up and you end up falling out with each other. Me and Adam have never had a serious fight because if he takes the pen off my table every day and doesn't return it, even though it's petty and small, I raise it with him. And we have a rule, and if you don't raise it and it gets raised a few months later, then it doesn't matter what the issue was, it's the person's fault who didn't raise it. And so that's kept us in good stead with us and our management team. It just snuffs out politics and all that stuff you don't want in the office. If you do that from day one and culture comes from the top, you need to practice that as the founder. And it's uncomfortable because raising things is uncomfortable.
Look, it was a pleasure talking to you. It was a pleasure seeing you again.
Yeah, you too, and thanks for doing what you do for our sector.
Oh my goodness. And it's just a pleasure, hearing about your progress, where you're at and where you're going to be. Perhaps in 5 years' time, we'll get together again, and who knows what your platform and your business and your enterprise has been able to achieve. We love having entrepreneurs at our conference and our event because it inspires us, but also provides us such good tips about, what it takes to make change, and the different type of change that people can make, the type of different businesses you can look at to create change. So thank you. We'll share this with a whole lot of people that whether they come or online at a conference. So I'd like to thank you again, Josh, and I'll see you in 5 years' time, or maybe if you come to Melbourne.
Yeah, I'll hit you up when I'm next down there. But thank you, and hopefully, when we're at $1 billion in ticket sales, I can come and present at it again. But thank you for supporting us when it mattered more than ever. We were embryonic when you gave us a chance. So thank you.
Thank you.